Hi, the Mudbrooker here. Finally getting around to answering my 4 truths and 1 lie tag video. So, here we go. It's true that I have never broken a bone. In spite of having many sprains, strains, pulls, tears, abrasions, avulsions are fun, I have never actually broken a bone. I should have. I crushed my left hand so badly once that it swelled up to the point where the skin actually split. But the x-ray showed there's nothing broken. So that one is true. Next, yes, I was a great-grandfather before I was 30. Some of you figured out how this is possible. It's my wife's doing. My wife is 29 years older than I am. My wife had her daughter when she was 19, and her daughter and granddaughter both had children quite young. It gets worse, though. I have stepchildren who are older than I am, and my wife has a son who's a little bit younger than me, who is married to my younger sister. So that means my sister is my daughter-in-law, my stepson is my brother-in-law, and I have 2 nephews and a niece who are my grandchildren. And so, yes, it's true that I was a great-grandfather before I was 30. It's also true that I am the first person to establish a cemetery in over 90 years in the county where I live. Several existing cemeteries have bought new property and expanded, but all of the cemeteries in the county had been established before about 1910. One of my wife's sons, Bob, died in 2002, and she took it quite hard. When you lose a young child, you end up mourning the loss of the potential of what they could have been. But when an adult child dies, you know exactly what you lost. My wife and I had always planned on being buried here. It's a beautiful place and a nice place to leave your bones. But we had never actually pursued the legal requirements to establish a cemetery. But when Bob died, I decided it would be much comfort to her to bury him here. So I did a little research and found out that all that's really necessary to establish a cemetery here in Wisconsin is, first of all, to have the land. Second, you need 7 people who live in the county to form a cemetery board. Once that's done, you register yourself with the county registrar's office as a nonprofit corporation, and that's about all there is to it. Since we don't sell lots, we're exempt from pretty much all the laws regulating cemetery practices, such as having to report our finances yearly to the state or even seek approval of the town board to establish a cemetery in the first place. I also mentioned in one of my earlier videos, a 5 facts video, that I have the legal authority to transport and dispose of human remains. And that's why. Okay, fourth. Yes, it's true I got thrown out of a bar for being too old. Well, rather it was looking too old, and I kind of got thrown into a bar. First, I should explain, ever since I was 15, I've been 6 foot tall, 250, 260 pounds, and I've had a full beard. So I always look quite a bit older than I actually was. When I think I was just barely 17, some friends of mine were dating a couple of girls from Eau Claire. Now, Eau Claire is a college town, so there's a lot of underage people looking for something to do on a Saturday night. One of the bars downtown was originally 2 separate buildings that shared a common wall. Over the years, somebody had bought both buildings, cut doorways in the connecting wall, and set up a dance floor on one side of the building. Every other weekend or so, what they would do is they would close the doors between the bar proper and the dance hall, take all the liquor out of the bar that was on the dance hall side, and they'd bring in a band and set it up so that under 21 could go in and dance and listen to the music. The only problem was they shared common bathrooms. The bathrooms were on the far wall opposite of the entrances. So in order to keep the underage kids out of the bar, they would string ropes across the end of the bar and post a couple of bouncers there. Anyway, My friends and I rounded up their dates and went down to the bar, paid to get in to listen to the band. And after about an hour or so, I had to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom, and as I was coming out, I was accosted by a woman. She was probably about 40, dressed like a teenager, and this being about 1986 or so, she looked stupid as hell. And she asked me if I had any ID. I said, well, who are you and why are you asking me for ID? Well, I'm the manager of the bar, and if you're over 21, you can't be on this side of the dance floor when we have the underage thing going. Well, okay. One of the few times in my life I was actually good at thinking on my feet. I said, well, sure. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go wait in the bar over here while my friends are over there dancing. Okay. So I walked past the bouncers and went into the bar side of the tavern and proceeded to get drunk off my ass, which pissed my friends off because I was the one who drove them down there in the first place, so they had to drive me home. So, yeah, technically I got thrown into a bar for looking too old, but that one's true. Which brings us to the lie. No, I have never been arrested, much less arrested for narcotics trafficking. I did get hassled by the man once for it, though. When I was 27, a friend of mine had recently moved down to Indiana and opened himself a body shop. I had a 1967 Mustang that needed some body work, and he owed me some favors, so I took it down there, and we did the body work on it, primered it up, tore the interior out, and replaced the floorboards. Mustangs of that era, at least around here where there's a lot of road salt, are notorious for the floorboards rotting out. So we got it all done, and I headed for home, but I got a lot later start than I'd hoped for. So by the time I reached the Eau Claire County line, which is about a little better than an hour and a half away from where I live, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. It was early April, so it was colder than hell out. It was well below freezing, and the heater in that Mustang worked just well enough to keep the window from frosting over. I'd been drinking coffee all night, trying to stay awake and stay warm, so I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 2 o'clock in the morning, shaking from the coffee and shivering from the cold, when I got pulled over by an Eau Claire County Sheriff's deputy. Apparently I had a headlight that was flickering. Well, he pulled me over and asked me to step out of the car, patted me down for the officer's own safety, of course, and he asked me if he could search my car. Well, I didn't give a shit. There wasn't anything in there for him to look for, so I said, sure, go ahead. While you're searching, do you mind if I go and sit in the back of your car? I'm freezing my ass off here. He kind of looked at me funny. People don't usually volunteer to sit in the back of a police car, but he said, yeah, go ahead. So I jumped in his car, and I kept my foot in the door so I wouldn't get locked in. While this exchange was going on, 2 other officers showed up, and all 3 of them started searching my car. Well, they searched for about a half an hour and didn't find nothing because there was nothing to find. And I could hear him talking on the radio, well, we didn't find anything, we better send him for the dog. I figured, shit, this is going to take forever. The Eau Claire County Canine Unit is 1 guy, 1 dog, and 1 truck to haul him around in. It's the middle of the night, they're probably going to have to roll the guy out of bed, wake up the dog, get in the truck, come down here. I figure there's going to be at least another 45 minutes wasted in this process. But no, within 5 minutes the canine unit was on the site, along with another unmarked squad car. Well, the fact that the canine unit was on duty that time of night gave me a pretty good idea of what was going on, and when the driver of the unmarked squad car got out, I knew exactly what was going on. You see, the driver of the unmarked squad car was a fellow I'll call Stan for the purposes of this video. If you ever meet him, you'll never forget him. Stan is the guy for whom the word cadaverous was invented. You swear to God he's been dead for a couple of months. Looks like he just walked out of a fucking zombie movie. Anyway, Stan is the husband of one of my high school English teachers, and he is also second in command of the Western Wisconsin Drug Task Force. In other words, Stan has way too much rank to be standing around on the side of the interstate highway in the middle of a freezing cold April morning. For him to have been there and for the dog to have shown up that quick, they both had to have been in the area, which means they must have gotten a tip that a big drug shipment was coming through. And they figured my disreputable-looking Mustang with my disreputable-looking self driving it was the ideal candidate. Well, they turned the dog loose, and of course the dog didn't find anything either, because there was nothing to find. And once the dog got done, I got out of the back seat of the car, walked over to where the officers were all kind of clustered around, which really alarmed a couple of them, because when they got there, I was in the back seat of the car. They naturally assumed that I was in custody. Of course I wasn't. I asked them if they were done and if I could go, and they said, well, yeah, okay. And being the smart-ass kind of little prick that I was, and still am, I couldn't resist giving Stan a shot on the way out. I said, gee, Stan, for you to be here, you must have had a hot tip on something. I sure hope they didn't get by while you were screwing around with me. He didn't really like that. It probably wasn't the smartest thing to say. I'm sure if he had really wanted to press the issue, they could have found some reason to arrest me then, but he let it slide. And there you have it. The 4 truths and 1 lie revealed. I'll see you all next time.